Any additions to the agenda? If not, a motion to approve. Jason, all in favor? Carried. An approval of the February 13th, 2018 MPC minutes.
I'll move we approve the minutes from February 13th, 2018.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or concerns? All in favor? Carried. And with that, we'll just go on to development permit applications, file number DP 2018-012.
Good morning.
Good morning, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Oops, where did I go here? There we go. So this application is northeast of Dallam, 3.5 miles northeast of Dallam, so a little ways away. It's adjacent to Highway 569 and adjacent to an undeveloped road allowance. 569 has a curve in it because it's a diversion around a hill and some topography there. So the normal road right-of-way was never developed. They did this diversion. So the applicants want to build a farm building adjacent to the undeveloped road allowance, and they want to have it 50 feet rather than the 75 feet, which is our normal setback. And I'll show you some photos and maps in a moment. So that's a variance of about 33%. So the farm building itself is a permitted use, so that's not in question here. It's just that the variance is more than 10%, so MPC has to approve it. And Alberta Transportation has already issued a roadside development permit, because anything within 800 meters of one of their highways has to have their approval, so they've approved it already. Our infrastructure department says they have no issues because they have no intention of building that road allowance because it's right next to 569 and also because of the terrain. So in conclusion, the location will not interfere with the amenities of the neighborhood or materially interfere with the enjoyment or value of neighboring parcels. Alberta Transportation has no issues with the proposal, so staff supports this application. MPC has three options. You can approve it, the variance, refuse it, or provide an alternative recommendation. Staff are recommending approval of this variance to the farm building to be located on Plan 901-2480 Block 1, subject to the conditions in Appendix A of the Development Permit Report. And if you look at the conditions, so number 2 is about the variance and in support of the variance. Number 5 is an error that should not be on there, so you're going to have to take that one off, Margaret. And here is some mapping. So here we go, 569 curves around here. Here's the parcel of land. And this, so the 15.5 meters, actually the arrow got moved somehow when these reports were generated. So the arrow is supposed to be over here, 15.5 meters from this undeveloped road allowance. And this photo, it's hard to tell, but so this photo is taken from this side up here. I was at the dead end there. And that's what you see. So it's just a big hill there. And that's everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any questions or concerns? Board's wishes. Ben?
Yeah, just as information, the last drawing I seen from transportation, if they ever did anything with that, just go back to that. Yeah. If they ever did anything to that road, their drawing shows that they're taking off down here and curving up here on a speed curve. So they're going to eliminate this all eventually anyway. So, and I see no problem with it. Well, I'll move the recommendation of the staff to approve this with the removal of number 5 out of the conditions.
Okay, any questions or concerns? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And we'll go to development permit DP 2018-013. 013. Whenever you're ready.
So this proposal is 3.5 miles southeast of Nightingale. The applicant is proposing a garden suite, which is discretionary use, and they're asking for 3 variances in this case. They're asking for a variance to the maximum 40 feet between the primary residence and the garden suite. They're asking for a variance to the maximum square footage of a garden suite, which is supposed to be 1,200 square feet, and they're asking for 1,280 square feet. And also, our land use bylaw says that the primary dwelling cannot be a manufactured dwelling, and the applicants are proposing to utilize the existing manufactured dwelling as the primary. So our land use bylaw, this is our illustration of the garden suite. This was kind of our vision when we put it in the bylaw, and what was adopted by council. We were looking at distinctly being able to see that one was a primary and one was a garden suite, an accessory dwelling. So here in yellow is all the different provisions that they're asking for variances for. So you can see B, or no, actually it's this one up here. A garden suite must be located on a parcel where the primary dwelling is one of the housing types, a single detached, a dwelling moved on, or a dwelling modular. So a variance greater than 10% goes to Municipal Planning Commission, and as long as it doesn't, these are the criteria with which MPC can approve a variance if they choose. So we've discussed at previous MPC meetings this 40 feet, which is currently under review. The whole section is under review in our bylaw. But this 40-foot variance request is not doing the job it was meant to do initially, which was to prevent subdivision. So that was their one variance request. The maximum square footage was put in place because in combination with the different housing types we've stipulated, it was intended again to portray that one was the primary and one was an accessory to the primary. And that's the same with, the housing types. So in circulation comments, an agency circulation was not performed. Our internal staff review, there was no concerns. We did have one comment from an adjacent neighbor in support of the application, saying that basically that relaxation of zoning requirements within close proximity of Strathmore is essential to growth. That was their position. So in conclusion, staff doesn't have any concerns with the variance request for the distance between the primary and the proposed garden suite. The request to the maximum square footage in combination with the request to vary the primary dwelling would not meet the intention of the land use bylaw. It doesn't then provide in an obviously visual way that one is primary and one is a garden suite and accessory. So the 3 variance requests altogether significantly diminishes the effectiveness of the land use bylaw, and the cumulative effect kind of exceeds a tipping point and renders the vision kind of ineffective. So it is staff's opinion that the correct process would be for the applicant to apply for a land use bylaw amendment to amend the land use bylaw if that's the direction to make such a significant change to this section of the bylaw. Staff do not support this application for the garden suite with the 3 variances. So MPC does have 3 options. You can approve the variances, you can refuse them, or you can provide an alternative recommendation. As I mentioned, staff's recommendation is that the variance request be denied, with the reason that the variance request to the maximum square footage of a garden suite in combination with the request to vary the primary dwelling would not meet the intention of the land use bylaw, which was to provide for a secondary residence while portraying in an obviously visual way that the garden suite is an accessory to the primary residence. The request for 3 variances significantly diminishes the effectiveness of the land use bylaw for this residential type of use. And we'll just go through some mapping and photos. So here's Nightingale up here, and here is the location of the parcel. The site plan, so this is their current residence here, and this is where they're proposing to put the garden suite, which is greater than 40 feet. It's 110 and 1,280 square feet. So that's the proposed garden suite, and this is the primary residence existing. And that's just a photo of their property from the road. And that's everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any questions? Any concerns?
Through the chair, does it make sense? You had mentioned that we had the option of looking at the land use bylaw if this was something that we were looking at approving and changing the land use bylaw so that it didn't bother coming at us again. But to do that, we would have to refuse this and then go look at the land use bylaw if we were going to do that, right? Or is there a way to set this aside until we've done that, rather than allow the variances, go back and look at the...
So the land use bylaw amendment can happen whether this is approved or refused, either way. But we are at the very beginning stages of this land use bylaw amendment, and it has to go through the whole 3 readings and the public hearing and everything, so it's not going to be overnight. I don't know if the applicant would want to wait that long, but maybe Colton has more to add.
Yeah, through the chair, part of the reason that, so with the previous land use bylaw, you couldn't have 2 dwellings on any parcel that was under 80 acres in size. And we heard from a lot of consultation and open houses that people wanted to have a second dwelling on a parcel. They wanted their kids or renter to have an extra source of income, or aging parents to live on the parcel. So we wanted to allow that for those parcels that are under 80 acres because they couldn't technically have that before. So what the kind of compromise was to go ahead with this garden suite. So you are allowing that second dwelling, but you are putting some restrictions in place. So you're not having, like, say it's one of those 4-lot subdivisions where they're all side by side, 2 to 3 acres. If you put 2 dwellings and there's no size limitations or anything, you might as well be going to live in Strathmore at that point because of the density. So that's why we put the square footage maximums in place. We tried to have those separations between the dwellings so you still had that kind of open space feel in the agricultural setting when it is those smaller parcels under 80 acres in size. So that is why some of these regulations are in place. The other one was not having the primary dwelling as manufactured. We didn't want to have, in consultation with legal, we didn't want to have too much effect on changing the character of a particular area. So we tried to restrict dwelling types a bit, so there would at least be 1 stick built on the parcel, and then a modular or manufactured could be that second dwelling. So that's why these restrictions are in place. Council is free to alter the variances, to provide the variances. However, it would be potentially precedent setting and go against a lot of the intention of why these were put in place.
Any other questions? Tom?
I'm just trying to wrap my head around this. So if they would have submitted the building they're moving onto the place as their primary residence, and then use the other one as their secondary, does that get them around one of the variances? And then the other choice they would have, instead of moving the second house on, if they stick built the house, then that would sort of, this is what so the feel is we don't want 2 manufactured houses on one parcel. I'm new to this, so I'm just trying to figure this one out through my head here, so.
Through the chair, that was what was kind of brought forward through the open houses, is people wanted the double 2 dwellings on the parcel, but there was a lot of comments made about having some level of, let's give people a second dwelling, but let's make sure we're not too much altering the area and allowing at least, let's have 1 stick built, let's still have space between them, and let's not make sure we have 2 3,000 square foot houses side by side on a parcel.
Jason?
I'll put a motion on the floor. I will move that council go with option 1 to approve DP 2018-0-013, a garden suite with the three proposed variances.
You mean MPC? Okay. Any questions? Tom?
So if we vote for this, we are voting against our land use bylaw. Okay.
Any other questions? All in favor? Opposed? It's defeated. So, motion was defeated. Do we have to provide reasons why it was defeated, or do we have to have a?
I have provided reasons for my recommendation. I don't know if you guys are going to be those reasons as to why you are defeating the motion.
Is those reasons, I'll ask the MPC, those the reasons going forward is why is that sufficient? I'll ask CAO, is that sufficient to put in reasons that we agreed to that? Or should it be in a motion?
You defeated the motion. You don't need reasons for defeating that.
Okay,
You've got grounds for that. It doesn't meet the land use bylaw. So.
okay,
But
okay,
you still have to deal with the matter in some fashion, right?
that's right. Okay, thank you. And we'll move on to development permit DP 2018-016.
You still haven't dealt with that development permit.
Okay. Okay, I misheard you then. Tom?
I move that we recommend or take the staff's recommendation for the MPC and choose to refuse DP 2018-013 with the three variances proposed. There's three variances on them. So that is why.
Okay. Any questions or concerns? Just with the reasons. Yes. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Now we'll move to DP 2018-16.
So this application is for an equestrian center, and the location is 1 mile north of the County Public Works shop, just right down the road here. And the applicant is proposing an equestrian center that's going to offer a variety of activities, which you have outlined there in the report, from boarding to riding lessons to day camps and horse shows. And the business is proposed to utilize the existing barn that's on site. The applicant has entered into an agreement with Lynx Energy to utilize the shared approach. It's already being used for the residents, and Lynx has given their permission to use it for the business. They had to sign an encroachment agreement to cross a pipeline and whatnot, but they've given their approval. The facility is proposed in a location which has significant traffic volumes already due to our facilities plus the industrial area across the road. So the Public Works Department and Agricultural Services don't have any issues with the proposal. The applicant is offering the storage of horse trailers for the boarders of horses and feel there would be a small number of people who would utilize this service. Staff feels this should be limited to a maximum of 5. The proposal was submitted to Alberta Health Services for review, and they had several recommendations, which I sent to the applicant a few weeks ago, and she's already been in contact with Alberta Health Services. They called me and told me that they had been discussing it with her, and they had come to some conclusions about how they were going to proceed from their end and to make sure the water quality and the water was tested regularly and all of these different things. So they're already looking after that. In the internal file review meeting, Public Works Department said that they just wanted to ensure there was adequate room to park on site, that nobody would count or park on the county roads, and that is not the plan of the applicant to do that. The approach has been inspected already. Agricultural Services has reviewed the manure management plan, and it is based on the manure and pasture management for horse owners brochure that we gave them. And it is, it's a compost system that they want to use. And then if they have extra, they're going to send it off site for other people that want to use the compost. So the facility, in conclusion, is proposed in a location which already has significant traffic volumes due to the county facilities and the industrial area. The Public Works Department and Agricultural Services have no issue with the proposal. Staff supports this application. So there are 3 options: to approve the equestrian facility, to refuse it with reasons given, or to provide an alternative recommendation. And staff is recommending approval with the conditions which are attached. And I'll just point out, so they have to make sure their business is operated in and consistent with their application details and their manure management plan. They cannot park on the county roads. They cannot dispose of any of the business waste at the waste transfer sites. No more than 5 horse trailers to be stored on the property at any given time. And the applicant to supply documentation confirming that an existing barn which will be utilized for this business meets the Alberta Safety Code requirements for a commercial equestrian facility prior to commencing operation. So this barn, at the time it was constructed, the applicants were not aware that they needed permits for a barn, so they did not get any permits for the barn. And now that they want to use it for a commercial purpose, it needs to be to a different standard if they're going to have the public in there. So that we are recommending that condition. So there's their location. Here's us here, and that's the next quarter over. That's their site plan. And that's just an aerial photo. Our photos were taken prior to when they built their house there, so. That was taken in the fall last year from the road here. That's the barn. And that's everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Ben?
Yeah, under the conditions, is there an office space there? Is there going to be an office space there?
She didn't mention an office space, like in the barn, you mean?
Yeah, the reason I'm asking is the condition number 8, where it says no waste from the business will be disposed of in any county waste transfer site. But we don't have an issue if they've got a office waste or paper material and stuff from your general. It's animal waste that we're worried about, right?
Right. Yes, animal waste or trash. So
Just
I can add that.
Just to change that it's the domestic, I don't know how you want to put it in there, as domestic waste or paper
office.
waste, office.
Paper office waste.
Yeah. No animal waste.
Okay, any other questions? You have to use the podium, please, and state your name.
Hi, my name is Tiffany. Just in response to your suggestion there, would that mean that like waste from, say, people having lunch or whatever that would go in the trash, would that be included in waste that would have to be separate to county waste, or? Okay. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions while you're there?
Oh, I don't know if you're done going through the appendix, but I was just wondering, for point number 10, this where you state that prior to commencing of operation of the equestrian center, it has to be built to commercial standard. I was just wondering because right now the barn isn't complete. It's pretty much a shell. I would like to propose that I have just strictly outdoor boarders, and people who would not be using the barn at all for any reason at this point in time, I would have it locked and completely off limits, but then I would still be able to start my equestrian boarding facility just for 100% outdoor services. Nothing that would be in the barn.
Okay.
Would
Anything
you,
else?
if you were looking at that, would you put a time limit on that? Because you will use the barn.
Yes, so I guess my suggestion would be as soon as we're able to get in the process of building it to commercial standard.
No, I mean a time,
Oh.
like 6 months, 5 months, that type of a timeline. Because if you're out there doing
Right.
something and a storm blows up, you're going to end up inside the barn.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I guess with the proximity of us to town, the people who are already on site, if that were to be an issue, they could either go to town or, worst scenario, they could come and join us in our home.
Excuse me, I'm just reading number 10. and so if we're
Okay.
gonna, the applicant to supply documentation confirming that the existing barn will be utilized for this business meets. So until she utilizes the barn for the business, does she not cover that? Like, I mean, I guess we have to sort of take her word for it. But if she's not using it as part of the business, I think number 10 covers that.
The rest of the condition says prior to commencing operation of the equestrian center. So my intention was the condition, I was kind of in the mindset with Councillor Armstrong was that if she plans to have day camps and whatnot, and she's got all these kids out there that their families have dropped them off, and a storm comes up, and she's already spoken to Alberta Health Services about the bathroom situation, so either she has to construct a bathroom in the building, or they did say she could have porta potties on site during day camps and whatnot. But I just thought, I think it's going to be really tempting to have that building there and not use it.
Can I just ask about condition 9 as well? In the application details, it says up to 15 to 20 horse trailers. You're okay with the condition of up to 5?
I was going to ask, okay, so I have no issue with the 5 because I foresee that there won't be very many owners that actually have horse trailers. But in the event that, say, there were to be an emergency, like we had all those grass fires in the fall last year, it would be nice that if I had boarders that had horse trailers, that I could call them in the event of an emergency and have them at least available to pick their horses up. But like I said, I don't foresee that many horse trailers at all being on site. To be honest, I think I'd only imagine maybe 3 or so. But if I could, I would like to have at least 10 just in case of an emergency.
What was the planning's idea behind 5?
Well, there's a lot of, there's a lot of things already on the property, and to have, if she were potentially to have 20 horses boarded and 20 horse trailers stored on the site, I just think that's quite a bit. And if there was an emergency, they're not storing them. That's different. I don't think we would have an issue with that. It's just the long-term storage.
Okay. Any other questions, concerns? Tom?
So, if we have, I don't think basically we have any problems with the overall concept of this. We've got a couple of sticking points. My question is, with these sticking points, can I vote for this without overruling our land use bylaw.
Through the chair, MPC can set or amend the conditions as they see fit, and these conditions aren't really tied to the land use bylaw so much. There's no specific regulations in the land use bylaw regarding any of the conditions being discussed right now, so that MPC is able to do whatever they'd like in regards to these, altering these conditions.
Any other questions? Amber?
I do think the conditions are important as stated, and I would like to see number 10 just because of liability issues, because it will be used for commercial.
Sorry, can't hear you.
Even with my microphone? I
Already misheard once today. I'm not going to do it again.
I like the conditions, and I think it's important from a liability perspective that we leave number 10, and that there is that building safety codes documentation.
Okay, any other comments? I guess in regards to number 10, if the applicant was here and the barn wasn't there, okay, and part of the application was going to build a barn, we would say it's commercial and we wouldn't, I guess, looking at that, would we grant it, I'm not asking staff, but the board, would you approve it without that barn being built, or would you approve it once the barn for operation is built? Because the barn is integral to the application. Right now it's built. The prudent thing would be to do is go and get some permits, get building codes out there, the inspectors, and start that process. And let them, at some point, they will say, yeah, it's approved, right? It doesn't, I don't know the process, but I'm thinking, for me, that would be the best. I don't think it's arduously long, but it's important that you start as soon as possible. Does that make any sense? Okay? Because I don't know if it has to be finished for building codes to be happy, or is the plumbing done and the washrooms are safe? You know, that's between you and the inspector and staff here, I'm thinking. Tom?
I don't want to nitpick, but if it was me, I would just go ahead and say, yeah, I'm going to agree. And if I happen to use that barn, I'd use that barn. Because I don't think any of this liability falls on us. It falls on, you're going to have insurance to run this operation. So it really doesn't matter to us what you do. And I can't. You give her permission. No, you know, I know, I understand that. But it's sort of a law that has we're asking a condition that theoretically has no teeth in it. Because if you choose to ignore it, there's nothing we can do. Jason may drive by and look at it and say, no, they're using it for the wrong thing and report you, but I don't know. So I'm just like.
You're not totally right there, Tom. If you put that in there, if they're using it and they're not supposed to, you can stop them from using that. Yeah. You can stop all work that's being done on that, or whatever that facility is being used for.
Will that happen?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, if some parent comes in and complains because something in there wasn't, the washrooms weren't right and their little girl didn't, whatever, I don't know what the reason is, and they complain to this staff will go out there and shut it down.
Andy?
Through the chair, it would actually be a safety codes issue, which has a lot of power, and they would issue a stop work order on the business and on the barn if it is being used for commercial purposes and doesn't meet safety codes, especially if the public are involved. And that is an enforcement issue which would be brought to our attention either by members of the public, by our own peace officers, or our own development officers.
And these safety codes are provincial in nature. They're not county.
Okay, just to get back. Tiffany? So if Tiffany we agree to this, and she agrees to it, and she doesn't use the barn, but she sets up her facilities, where does that, what position does that put Tiffany in? Because she's not using any, she's just using her property. And so I just want, I think we should clarify that for Tiffany. Can she set up her business and not use the barn? I think she asked the question, and I don't think we answered it.
Through the chair, yes, absolutely. She can set up the business and start moving ahead and use the outside area. And I'm sure her intention is to make sure that the barn does meet the safety codes and commercial standards. So we would probably check in with her later in the summer, just see where she's at, et cetera, and try and make sure that safety codes get in, do the inspections as soon as possible so that she can move the business to more of a 100% running business.
And to clarify, the way the current conditions are written, that's possible that way. I'll move that-
I don't think that condition is worded that way, because it says prior to commencing operation of the equestrian center. So if I took that part off, it would say that the existing barn will be utilized for this business meets Alberta Safety Code requirements for a commercial equestrian facility. I guess it could say prior to utilizing the barn.
That's where it comes in when my first question was to put a time limit on it. If you're going to do that, because if she was, as Glenn said, if it was bare and nothing was there, we would probably say go ahead and start your building, but the building has to meet all the codes before you can use it. And that's basically all we're saying now. So if you put a 6-month time limit on it, then she can go ahead and do what she wants with the equestrian facility, start bringing the things in, but within 6 months, she can't use the barn until she has it coded, and it has to be done by 6 months.
Through the chair, Suzanne, I think if we word it, all construction shall conform to Alberta Safety Code regulations. Development shall meet all provincial and, number 10. Applicant to supply documentation confirming that the existing barn, which will be utilized for this business, meets Alberta Safety Code requirements for a commercial equestrian facility prior to using the barn as part of the operation of the equestrian center. So I think that has the county covered and allows her to move forward with the business. Does that work?
You had it answered before, okay. Any other questions? Go ahead, sure.
I move that we approve DP 2018-016, an equestrian facility to be located at Northeast 1624-24-4, Plan 161-2417, Block 1, Lot 1, subject to the amended conditions in Appendix A of the Development Permit Report.
Okay, any questions? All in favor? Carried. Thanks for coming in. And we'll move to subdivision, file number SD 2017-042.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this application proposes to subdivide roughly 2-acre parcel from the titled land. So this is the truck fill that was approved for rezoning on March 6th. This is now the subdivision application that's tied to the land that they rezoned for that. Okay. So our recommendation is that the MPC choose option 1, which is to approve subdivision application SD 2017-042 with the conditions noted in Appendix A of the planning report. The other option for consideration is that it be refused. We're recommending option 1 as it aligns with the MDP, the land use bylaw. We have no concerns with servicing and access for this proposed subdivision, and the submitted geotechnical report and phase 1 environmental site assessment that were submitted were found to be satisfactory to our county engineering consultants. It's adjacent to Range Road 222 and Township Road 240, approximately 6.2 kilometers east of Highway 1 in a portion of the Southeast 3, 2422 west of the 4th. The existing land uses are Agricultural General District and then the Public Utility District as of March 6th. We did a brief, so with subdivision, we do a brief policy review. It's not as in detail as the rezoning stage. And we found it, of course, aligns with the South Saskatchewan Regional Plan and the RGMS, as well as the Municipal Development Plan. Largely, there still was those issues with adjacent to country residential, but given the approval to public utility, we now no longer consider those as not being in alignment, as that issue was addressed. The proposed subdivision area has that land use designation of public utility, so all future development will be required to align with the rules and regulations of the land use bylaw for that district. The proposed subdivision will have access off of the Range Road 222 and 240. As condition to subdivision approval, both approaches will need to be inspected and signed off by our Public Works Department. And then an approach to the remainder of the parcel will also need to be inspected and signed off. In terms of water servicing, it'll come from the regional water line. There will be no sanitary servicing requirements for the parcel, as there will be no permanent employee on site. In terms of municipal reserve, as per the Municipal Government Act, their municipal reserve is not required, as it is the first parcel out of the subdivision, out of the quarter section, sorry. We circulated it to all adjacent landowners within a mile of the subject lands. There was no letters received in objection to the, well, three were, I guess there was the three received an objection with the redesignation. We didn't put them in with this report because we had them focused on at the redesignation stage, and then we had that letter received in support by the applicant. Board of Health Services had their standard comments. ATCO Gas and ATCO Pipelines had no objections, as well as TELUS and the WID. I'm just going to go down to the mapping quickly. Well, these are the conditions, recommended proposed conditions for approval. The taxes are paid up, that they do a final plan of survey, the approaches are built to county standards. They are to enter into an easement agreement and a road acquisition agreement. And then condition 6, to prepare that landscaping plan and provide, and then condition 7 is the development agreement in regards to the landscaping and the provision of securities in the amount of 125% for the construction of the, well, for the landscaping.
The securities was for the landscape?
Correct, yes. That's the only item that'll require securities for this subdivision stage is landscaping, as there'll be no roads, other improvements that the county has an interest in. The location plan of the subject parcel. The site plan. And the area that was circulated. I'll just go back up to my recommendation. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any questions? Ben?
Excuse me, through the chair, I brought it up at the public hearing. I think it needs to be in the condition that dust control is part of number 9 or number 8, whichever one of the word is, but I think we need that the applicant has to put dust control on there to alleviate some of the concerns of the two landowners adjacent to it at the public hearing.
Through the chair, we looked into that, and what we're proposing and what I've discussed with Public Works is a separate, not doing it through a condition because we want to have the dust control go on indefinitely rather than a set period of time where we wouldn't be able to control the sign off on a subdivision condition, because subdivision conditions, before we give them the plan to register, we have to check that all of them have been done. So we would really only be able to do one dust control and then it would be done. So what we're hoping is to have our Public Works Department enter into an agreement where it's done regularly, separate from these subdivision conditions. It's a good question. Through the chair. I can't guarantee it through subdivision. Our role in the Wheatland Regional Corporation hopefully would allow us to have some ability to work with that.
So then a condition on there that the Public Works enter into an agreement with the landowner for dust control.
We could go, yeah, if MPC wishes to add that
Then
condition.
it's on record
then we could
somewhere.
add that on record, so we could add that condition.
Would this be the time that we would address any hours of operation, or?
Through the chair, we would address that through the development permit. So that's the next step. The development permit will come in, and our development officer will work to make sure that those hours of operation, we're thinking initially to have it after after people leave the house in the morning, and then end fairly early in the afternoon or mid-afternoon, maybe, just to try to avoid when they're at home in the evening.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Go ahead. Jason?
I'll move that MPC go with staff's recommendation to approve the subdivision application SD 2017-042 with the conditions noted and added in Appendix A of the planning report.
Okay, any other questions? All in favor? Carried. Thanks. Any other planning matters? Motion to adjourn? Donna, all in favor?